All right, everyone, this is Mike Mulrooney here with another edition of Shirley Talk, and today we have Deryl Sweeney. Did I say that right?
Yeah, you nailed it.
All right, and you're with Cure CF, and we were just talking before we started the recording. First of all, we'd like to know a little about you and what got you into this, but I would say a lot of people don't know what cystic fibrosis is.
Yeah.
So maybe cover a little bit about the reason why you did and what you do. I see you do some motivational speaking.
Yeah, I'm all over the place. So in my day job, I'm a business coach. So I help people marketing. I help people figure out kind of where they want to go with their life and their business and really drive it to the next level and get it to where they want it to be.
Okay.
That's my day job.
So did you get into that after working in corporate America, or is this something that you just really had a passion for?
Yeah, I'm a personal development guy.
Okay.
I've throughout my life always wanted to see, how do we bring creativity? How do we bring awareness? How do we kind of take our own lives to the next level? And I found myself a few years ago, I had a great life. Things were going really well for me. But I thought, what does it look like to be a little bit better father? And I was like, wait, what does being a better father even mean?
Yeah.
Right? So kind of unraveling that and just constantly kind of leveling up my own life and doing things by design. I started doing it in my own life when I saw the impact of working with coaches, and I come from a sports background, so I've been a coach for a very long time. I coach soccer, and when I thought, man, all the stuff I learned coaching soccer, you can apply to people's lives, and it impacted my life. So I just want to turn around and do the same thing. And man, it has fulfilled me and lit me up in ways that I never expected.
I grew up playing football, baseball. My son absolutely loves soccer, so it's interesting you pointed that out. He just got into futsal a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
But sports isn't always about the sport. It's about working together and learning and developing teamwork type environment. So I'm sure that's probably what you picked up along the way with the sport. So people get so caught up that sports this, sport that, but it is more about the ball that you're kicking or shooting or playing with than it is people learning to work together.
Yeah, and it's it's funny because once you kind of get away from the game, and I had my first child 6 years ago, and I stopped coaching, hopefully just for a while, but you think back, you don't remember the wins and losses. You remember the hotel stays. You remember the experiences. You remember, the letdowns. You remember the 2 a.m. phone calls from a player who truly needs help. And you remember the relationships along the way.
Right.
And now all these years later, kids that I coached when they were 16, 17, 18, I'm celebrating them having their own children. I'm celebrating their achievements in life. I'm there and get to be around families in really cool ways. So to your point, it's about so much more than the scoreboard or making a basket or kicking a ball.
I got 3 kids. I got 2 daughters and a younger son, and I've coached them in basketball, all of them. And I had a girl that I'd coached many years, and she saw me the other day, and she gave me the biggest hug. Yeah. And it's awesome that you feel like you've touched those kids somewhere along the way when they come up and they feel that strongly about you that they go out of their way. She was tripping over it. It was priceless. Yeah, it was priceless that you've been able to touch those kids like that.
Yeah, well, and to your point, that's what got me into the coaching side of things, is to be able to do the same thing for people who are trying to build a business that may support their family, or helping them get to the point where they have the courage to take that leap of faith and do something and start something. There's so many dreams, there's so many ideas out there, and there's a lot of people right now who say, I want to do something for cancer, I want to impact cancer, right? But there are only very few who actually go on and do it, who actually make the kind of impact Shirley is making. So to be able to partner with people to get them past their own mental blocks and take things and make things a reality is everything.
A lot of times it takes just a little bit of encouragement for somebody to take a step outside their comfort zone and do something, really positive in the world. So cystic fibrosis, I was looking it up a little bit, and we were talking again that I don't know a lot about it. Yeah. So what is cystic fibrosis? It's something in the lungs? Is that?
Yeah, so cystic fibrosis, and look, it's not uncommon that you wouldn't have heard of it. I didn't know it until I had to know it.
Right.
A lot of people I've come across in the last 6 years don't know a lot about CF.
Well, it's funny you say that, because I knew about cancer, but I didn't know about the financial struggles of cancer until my mom got sick. Right. Had no clue. Didn't didn't know that people had to choose between food or medicine, and it happens every day. So I didn't know that aspect of cancer either. It hits you so bad financially. But cystic fibrosis, you didn't know much about it either until it touched you?
I didn't know anything about it. I'd never heard of it. And even early on, so basically CF, cystic fibrosis, is a lung disease. And it's a life-shortening disease. I think that's the biggest thing I always want to get across. It's, when basically you find out about the CF is impacting a child or somebody in your family during now the newborn screening. So for us, my wife and I were having our first child. We'd gone through 18 months of fertility battles and trying to get pregnant, and we were just so overjoyed that something we wanted so badly had come to fruition. We were having our first baby, and he was beautiful. I just, even talking about it, I think back to being in the hospital room. Then 18 days later, we got a call that said, the newborn screen picked up some stuff. We did a little bit of additional testing, and they said, your child has cystic fibrosis.
So he was born with it.
Yeah, it's a genetic disease. Now, being the eternal optimist I am, I was like,
we'll beat this.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
A little Advil, a little Tylenol.
That's right. It's a minor setback. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Then you hear doctors tell you that it's a life-shortening disease, and the average lifespan for somebody with CF then was in the late 30s. So you got this. That
was how many years? 6 years ago, you said?
Yeah. So you have this brand new baby, and already you're thinking about when he's going to die.
Yeah.
And
I can't fathom that.
And that's very real for us. So it's a disease that impacts the lungs, and basically the lungs just deteriorate, so it causes just a lot of problems. It also impacts the pancreas and digestion, so you get a lot of CF kids that are underweight, have a real struggle to put on weight, and it manifests itself in a number of different ways, but the biggest thing is it just eats up the lungs to the point where a lot of CF patients, end up on the transplant list, and they try to extend their lives.
Does that help? I mean,
for a while.
So it doesn't transfer to the new lungs, I guess, or does it? I mean, some form of it transfers.
So because it's genetic, it's in the genes, basically.
So it will attack the new lungs.
Yeah, so both parents have to be carriers. So both my wife and I were carriers of this mutated gene.
Really?
So, you think, you have a 1 in 4 chance if both parents are carriers of a child being born with CF.
Well, I mean, we were talking about sports, and I've really enjoyed coaching my kids, and soccer is it's a heavy breathing.
Yeah.
So you don't think he'll probably play soccer and be able to one day? Or?
He plays soccer now.
Good.
He's doing great. We, in our foundation, we have a kid who's a cross-country runner.
Wow.
So these kids are getting out there. They're doing amazing things. They're living their lives. But as their lungs deteriorate, that gets harder and harder for sure.
So does exercise help at an early age, maybe, possibly?
Significantly.
So it maybe strengthens them a little bit so they can fight it as they get older, or maybe?
Yeah, so as a parent, everything we do is, one, you try to preserve lung function.
Right.
And so anytime you can get exercise, my wife always jokes, she's like, Samuel, so he's my oldest, his name's Samuel, she says he's naturally musically gifted.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well,
that's good though.
She says, well, he's playing a wind instrument. Like, it doesn't matter what he wants to play. He's playing a wind instrument.
Maybe get him on a guitar or something.
That's right. So anything, so it's just all about taking care of yourself, and it's intense. And the care from early on is pretty intense. Lots of hospitals visits, lots of,
Many surgeries?
So it just depends. There's some kids that, have surgeries. We have a little girl who's had several surgeries, in her first couple years of life.
Right.
Fortunately for Samuel, he hasn't had to deal with that. But, some kids, because they can't gain weight, because they're not, basically, because their pancreas is burned out, they can't digest fat the way you and I would.
Right.
Some people may be telling themselves that's a great thing.
Yeah, I need my pancreas isn't working like it should.
But, we have kids that have to be on feeding tubes at night to get the extra calories just to gain weight. So there's just a lot that goes into it. With Samuel, when he was born, right away they said, okay, you're going to come in to the clinic for a clinic visit every month. We went, and when you go to a clinic visit, you meet with a respiratory therapist, you meet with the doctor, you meet with the nurse, you meet with the nutritionist. Sometimes you meet with a social worker. So there's literally an army of people you meet with to put together this care plan to, again, just protect the lungs.
As long as possible. So what's that look like, a clinic visit? Is it educating you on how to exercise the lungs at an early age, or what to eat, or what to drink?
Yeah, so it's a lot of that, right? So the nutritionist helps us with what to eat and drink. The respiratory therapist, there's a lot of therapy we do every single day. So,
like breathing exercises?
Yeah, so if, when at Samuel's earliest age, you talk about new parents, right? And you would hope that the biggest thing you're trying to figure out is how to get this daggone swaddle on, right?
Yeah.
But we were laying our young child across our laps, and we're literally hitting his back in all these different places, and we do it twice a day.
To get his lungs moving, I guess?
The point of that, so with CF, the reason the lungs deteriorate is because with that gene, you developed a sticky mucus.
I saw that, yeah.
It just builds up in the lungs, and that's where, disease sticks to and deterioration sticks to, and it just deteriorates. So you're always trying to break up that mucus to keep the airflow going, keep things moving the way they need to. Unfortunately, he's old enough now that there are therapies he can do. We hook him up to what's called a vest. But even for a 6-year-old, people come and they see us and they're like, wow, he does that. And this vest literally shakes him for about half an hour.
To break the mucus loose, I guess? I can't believe there's not something that, you can get blood thinners that thin your blood out. And obviously I don't know the medical side of it, but it just me, outsider thinking, there's got to be a way to loosen that stuff up with medicine.
And there is. He has some inhaled medicines he takes. So one of them is Palmazyme.
Right.
And the goal of Palmazyme is to loosen that, but it's not. It doesn't make it go away.
Yeah, you mentioned the first time you have a kid, you shouldn't have to worry. I remember the first time, our first child, and we were leaving the hospital, and we were putting them in the car thinking, one, I can't believe they're letting us leave with a baby, and two, how safe do you have to drive to make sure we get home and nobody runs into us? And that's the kind of thing you should be thinking about instead of the medical side of what could, the problem that they're dealing with. Yeah. So he had this diagnosis. Do you have any other kids?
Yep. So he now has a younger brother, Noah, who's 4. So he was born a couple of years after.
So he doesn't have CF?
No, because we kind of knew we were going into, we're able to do some testing on the front end.
That's good.
That ensured he wasn't going to go through the same things.
Right. Wow, that's good, because you just never know if it's going to pass down to the next one.
And their families, we have, there's one, the Wicker family, they're on our board, and they've been incredible. They have twins, and both twins have CF.
Wow.
So oftentimes I think about the things we do with Samuel, and even in twins, it can manifest in different ways. So within kind of the CF battle, there can be unique things for each child that they have to figure out.
Wow. That's just trying to wrap my head around that. You don't know how, Kelly, she's pretty young, and we talk all the time, and I'm like, you just don't know how lucky you are to have healthy kids when you see something like this. And we've seen a lot of kids that have cancer, and that's even, that's horrible to see as well. So what happened? You obviously, Samuel is sick, and after a couple of years of dealing with it, did a couple friends get together and decide you all were going to create a foundation? Did you create Cure CF?
Yeah, so I'm one of the original founders. It's interesting. Y'all probably seen this in the cancer battle and with the other charities, around town in the nation, that people mourn and people work through stuff in different ways and on their own time.
Some people shut down and other people stand up.
That's it. My wife, first of all, she's in medicine, so she knew exactly what we're getting into.
Right.
And she was devastated. Me, again, the eternal optimist, and I was like, okay. Like, what do we have to do to fix it? Let's figure it out. So there's a national foundation that has been kind of on the forefront of driving all things cystic fibrosis and the care and the research around it. It's a pretty incredible entrepreneurial story, just in that there aren't a ton of people with CF, right? So we don't have the...
That's a good thing.
We don't have the national support, the national, you don't have the big sponsors and big donors and things that come in. There aren't CF games in the NFL and people wearing pink, using pink bats and baseball.
Yeah, it's not sexy.
Yeah.
I had a friend of mine, and he said, he had testicular cancer, and he said, that's not sexy.
Yeah.
And so there's not a lot of money sent to help people with that. So because it's not a sexy disease they can market, is what it sounds like to me. It doesn't get the extra funding because people aren't aware of it.
And it's not impact, people get involved a lot of times with the stuff that impacts them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's where we are. So, I was like, okay, there's a national foundation. What's going on in Louisville? There is a local chapter here. And I went and I just knocked on their door. And I said, hey.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I said, hey, you know, it's, they tell me my son has this, and they tell me y'all are the ones fixing it. What's what? So I sat down with the leadership over there, and before I got up that day, they had asked me to join the board.
I say, yeah, be careful what you ask for.
That's right. So I joined the board, and they do great work. They work hard. There are 4 people on that staff. They raise a bunch of money. But I'm a guy I don't settle easily.
Yeah.
So after about a year and a half or so being on the board, I started asking questions. I'm like, hey, why are we still doing this when doing something else could be more impactful, right? Why aren't we doing more? Why aren't we doing more in the corporate community? Why don't we have more partners and more sponsors? Why with 4 full-time staff are we only raising, $600,000, $700,000? It just didn't make sense to me because I knew Louisville and I know how network Louisville is, and I know the heart of people in this city and how they'll get behind a cause that they feel connected to.
Right.
So what do we have to do that? Long story short, I don't think that any of their reasons were invalid. In fact, they all made a lot of sense, but they basically let me know they were tapped and there's nothing else they could do. And that just didn't work for me. And around this time, as I'm having these conversations, I met a couple other people who have kids with CF, and they were starting to feel the same way. And so we went out, and over a beer, we said, hey, let's do an event. Let's put an event together. Let's raise some money. We can support, if they're at capacity, let's go above and beyond and take things to the next level. Let them do their thing, we'll do our thing, and put all the money towards making this better. So over a beer, we decided to throw a party in downtown Louisville back in 2015, and that's how it all started.
Most great ideas start on a golf course, so they start with a beer in your hand.
Yeah.
Well, that's incredible. So 2015, and y'all have raised quite a bit of money. I was looking up to see what y'all have done. You've made a huge impact with helping with Norton's.
Yeah. So
is that your all's partner of choice, I guess, to donate the money to?
One of them. Yeah. One of them. So Cure CF, we decided early on as a board, and I say board loosely. We are most definitely a board, but we're all parents. Yeah. We're cousins. Yeah. We're aunts. We are a 100% volunteer organization. There's no office. People feel really good that they know that the money they donate to us is going towards CF research. And that's where we decided to put it is we want to support the research that is going to extend our children's lives.
Right.
And we know, I don't shy away from it. People are like, why do you do what you do? I'm like, it's selfish. I want to keep my kid alive. Yeah. But along the way, I want to keep a lot of other people's kids alive too.
Absolutely.
So we got together over that beer and we decided to throw an event. And we threw a pizza party, a beer festival and pizza party in downtown Louisville.
I love it.
I remember.
Right around 4th Street, or where'd y'all go?
So we did it under the 2nd Street Bridge. So
that's right creative,
yeah. Center. Yeah. So natural cover, and it was just, none of us knew anything about events. None of us knew how to throw an event, what was involved. We just said we're going to do it. Yeah. We figured it out. And I remember we had a meeting about what's our goal? What should our goal be? And
create your mission statement. You got to have the impactful statement,
Doing everything from, hey, let's just make sure we don't screw this up to, let's try to raise as much money as possible. And we landed it. We wanted to raise $25,000. And that was truly our stretch goal. First and foremost, we wanted to do it well enough to earn the right to do it again. Yeah. Secondly, we said, gosh, if we could raise $25,000, that would be everything. And we raised $63,000.
So how did you do that? A pizza party. What's it down there? Bear Nose on the corner?
So man, I mentioned earlier, there's some great partners. The corporate community and the philanthropic community here in Louisville, I think is second to none.
Yeah. That's amazing.
So one thing about Cure
$63,000.
We just asked. Yeah. We just asked. So we said, hey, we're going to do a beer festival. And, I just moved back from Indianapolis where craft beer was all the thing. Yeah. Down here it's bourbon all day. Yeah. So craft beer just kind of started becoming a thing. So we asked all the local breweries. We said, hey, we're trying to do this thing. And they're like, yeah, we're in. So they would donate beer. They would donate kegs. And, so we did little samples. And we said, hey, there are already a lot of pizza festivals. How can we be different? And I said, the other thing that I'm seeing a lot of in Louisville right now are these local pizza places just popping up everywhere.
Yeah, they are.
So we start reaching out to those guys, and they're like, we'll send people, we'll send pizzas. So we usually have 14, 15 breweries. We have pizza places come in. Anthem's an incredible title sponsor for us. Brown Foreman always shows up, and they bring 2 or 3 of their brands. So we make sure we got the bourbon covered.
Yeah.
And it's just a great night.
Wow, that's amazing. That's a lot of money to raise on the, when we were talking before, when we first started with Shirley's Way, I said my biggest fear is having an event and nobody will show up. Yeah. And you did $63,000. About how many people showed up for your first event?
I think that first one, there were probably 600 or 700.
Wow. That's incredible.
And again, it's asking. I mean, the amount of stuff we didn't know. We talk about the fear that keeps people from taking that leap or starting something. The amount of things we didn't know. I mean, would fill a Freightliner. We didn't know we didn't know anything about PR.
Yeah.
We didn't. But we found somebody who said, "Yeah, I'll help." And she drove PR for one of the theaters downtown. She's like, "I'll help." We didn't know anything about a lot of things.
Yeah.
And the more we ask, and we're not shy. We're not afraid of no. So, look, I can find a sound partner and pay them money to do a great job. Or I can find somebody who's tell them about what we're doing, will get behind us. And our attitude is every dollar I'm not paying you is going towards research.
Right.
So we treat people right. We pay for what we have to, but we try to make those have-tos as small as possible.
No, I agree. Yeah, and you can. It's, we got to the point where we were doing so many things that we were tapping people multiple times. Yep. And, people have good hearts, but they can't give everything away.
Right.
So it's very difficult to hit that fine line. But, the businesses and these sponsors that we come up with typically a lot of times cover the cost. So so that works out pretty well. And I'm sure you'll have a lot of sponsors.
It is. And then you're able to tell people, hey, every dollar we raise tonight is going towards the cause, right? Because the cost of putting on this event or doing what we have to do is covered.
Right.
And it just grew from there. This was never, over that first beer, we never talked about this being a foundation.
Right.
But when we hit $63,000, it makes you start asking yourself, well, what else can we pull off?
Yeah.
Now 5 years, 2020, we're an event-driven organization, so we took some hits in 2020, but we got really, really creative. But in 2019, we did $370,000. 2018, we're at $330,000. So we've gone up every year.
That's good.
We're still 100% volunteer.
That's amazing.
We still don't have offices, resources, or overhead.
Yeah.
We pay for our own dinners at our evening board meetings. I mean, all the money that comes in is going to support the cause.
That's amazing. Well, that's fantastic. Like I said, I didn't know until Terry had tagged you in what it is you all do. So 2021, what's that look like?
Well, what's it look like?
Got the events already set up?
So, last year was a lot of fun. It's, we talked a little bit about what I do professionally. I think 2020 was such an opportunity for people because you either sat and waited for it to go back to how it was,
or you got creative.
You got creative.
Yeah.
And I think the businesses, the foundations that get creative may have a few things that they wouldn't have had before.
Right.
So for us, we always have a summer event. We do this big music festival out in the East End in Norton Commons. We've had Nappy Roots out there. We've had a number of different bands come out, and it's always been a good time. We raise about $100,000 at that
That's
event.
unreal. That's incredible.
So that's usually in June. So that was kind of right in, what is COVID? What events can you have? Can't you have? So we ended up canceling that event. Our beer and pizza festival we did in October, we did a virtual version, and that did pretty well. So we did well there. We bought a barrel of bourbon last year with Commonwealth Tap. So we partnered with Old Forester. We bought a barrel of bourbon, created a virtual event. So we sold all the bottles that came out of that barrel. So we're a group of people that just gets creative. We have goals in mind, and we don't really care how we get there.
Yeah.
It's just about getting there, and it's making the kinds of impacts we want to make. So when it comes to 2021, we hope we'll be back to having events. We love our events, but we've already got a lot of plans between bourbon, between beer, between other virtual events. We have things that we can build on from last year that we can slide right into 2021 if we need to.
Yeah. People like to get out and have a good time.
That's it.
We don't do a lot of grant work. We do a lot of gaming and fun parties, and, people seem to enjoy that.
Yeah.
And people, you can do grants, and those are boring and they're hard to fill out. And, there's a lot of follow up with that. But, the parties and the bourbon and stuff like that, that's usually a good time.
You guys are my kind of people. I mean, we call it partying with a purpose.
Yeah.
We say we party with a purpose. I will be honest and tell you that the next event we have without alcohol will be our first.
Right.
And here's what we say. There's you can't get through a weekend, outside of COVID without there being an opportunity to pay, a couple $100, put on, black tie and go support some kind of charity.
Yep.
So there's enough galas, there's enough, big events at these fancy hotels. Like, let's make something that's accessible.
Yeah.
It's tickets to ours are, $20, $50. It's, you can come down,
and that's most people can afford that.
Drink beer, eat pizza, listen to music for $100 for two of you. And then people get involved and see what you're about. But I always say we're not the charity who wants to make you break down in tears. Now, we have moments where people will cry once they start hearing the stories and the impact. But, we're about celebration. We're about bringing people together. We're about making an impact and having a damn good time doing it.
Yeah, that's been kind of what we've been trying to focus on over the years is how can you create something out of cancer that can be fun? Because it's sad. It really is.
Yeah.
And there's all kinds of stories with CF as well to really pull at the heartstrings. But do you want to do that, or do you want people to come and have a good time and feel good about what they're doing?
Sure.
Because it can be a morbid discussion, and it's not sexy like we talked about earlier. It's reality. So how can they help? You got a website?
Yeah, so everything, you can find us at curecfinc.com.
Okay.
We do a lot on Facebook. I mean, I think the easiest thing for people is visit us on Cure CF Inc. Of course you can donate. I told you I'm not shy.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
we're always looking to raise money. But as important, get on our email list, right? That's where, as these events and we find out what we can and can't do in 2021 come to fruition, we'll be talking about it there. We'll be sending updates. We'll be sending emails out. So get on our email list and know that, you're supporting kids and adults. But like I said, everybody on this board, I have a 6-year-old. We've got, I think the oldest kid is 12. The youngest is 1.
Wow.
So we're just a group of parents trying to save our kids' lives.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. That's amazing. Like I said, it's great to meet you and hear your story.
Yeah.
So the motivational speaking side, is that still considered your day job?
Yeah. Okay. So that's a part of my coaching stuff I do. I love this. I love getting in front of people. I want my life to be one of impact.
Yeah.
It's funny. When I moved back to Louisville from Indianapolis, I explored getting into the nonprofit world.
Yeah.
And I was actually frustrated it didn't work out, but now I know why it didn't work out, because that was always going to be a part of my plan. I just didn't know it yet.
Yeah, I did the same thing. I was looking to try and get on the board of a local nonprofit, and the first question they asked me is how much money I had to donate for the year.
Yeah.
They were expecting me as a board member to be able to donate $10,000 a year, and I'm not rich, so that wasn't an option for me. So that kind of, after Mom died, that kind of steered me in the right direction of, I can't be on the board because I can't make the huge donation, so I've got to do something.
That's right.
So yeah, sounds like.
And what you're talking about is impact. It sounds like you went the same path I did. I want to try to do it somebody else's way, the way they're doing it.
Yeah.
Right. And when that door gets shut, or you say, hey, this doesn't quite do it, you do things like launch Shirley's Way or Cure CF. I mean, because of what we've done in the last 5 years, you mentioned Norton. There are clinical we supported the efforts to drive clinical trials here in Louisville for the first time. Mm-hmm. So before, CF families had to go to Cincinnati or Indianapolis. And when you do a clinical trial, you're talking about 10, 20, 30, 40 visits.
Traveling to Cincinnati is not, it's close, but not twice a week, No, it's not.
Next door, and you can't spend all day.
Yeah.
So we supported that. We support, there are fellows, there's research happening right here in Louisville around CF because of the money we're raising. We're supporting research at Cincinnati Children's Hospital and other hospitals across the country. So the impact is most certainly local, but it's also regional and national.
Yeah.
And that all happened, to your point, because somebody else's way of doing it wasn't working. So people like you and the team at Shirley's Way and people like me and the team at Cure CF say, all right, what's it look like if we do it our way?
Yeah. And I tell people, first of all, I didn't know what a 501c3 was. I had no clue. But we're probably breaking not illegal rules, but we're probably breaking rules that most 501c3s have followed over the years just because we didn't know any better, because we're doing it differently.
Yeah.
And I think that, that I see that a lot. And again, we're not breaking any legal rules. Please understand what I'm talking about there. But just stepping outside the box of what most people wouldn't do or most organizations wouldn't do.
Yeah, and for good reason. There's a lot with the National CF Foundation that, they bring in a ton of money every single year, right? So they can't take some of the risk that you and I can.
Yeah,
on
absolutely.
the ground level. They can't get creative. It's not the risk reward side of it.
Well, they can't turn the ship fast enough.
That's right. That's exactly right. They can't be nimble. They can't say, well, if this doesn't work, what are the 3 other ways we can look at this, or how can we find a partner? I know you had Terry Hall on.
Yeah.
And what they're doing with the Leslie and Ryan Foundation is incredible.
It is.
And he called me up and he said, hey, being a new foundation, they needed some help on the setup and things like that. We're able to partner with those guys and do some of that stuff.
Yeah, we've done the same thing.
Yeah. But that doesn't happen at the national level. It happens when you get people in this community doing good stuff and people, willing to make the ask, right? And you've done that, Terry's done that. And then people say yes. And that's what I say. I'm blown away by people's willingness to say yes, even if they don't fully understand what they're saying yes.
Yeah. Most, like you said, most people want to do something. They just don't know what it is. So they'll agree and say, all right, what did I agree to, later on.
That's right.
But yeah, I don't, we've talked about this before, the other organizations, that to me, it's not a competition. And I'm finding that the major charities, they're all in it for competition. And they start out, and they do great things, don't get me wrong, but it's a major competition to them.
It is. And that was, unfortunately, we saw some of that.
Yeah.
It's once we started, we started to support the local chapter, and, the 2 of us that were on the board were asked to leave the board, and they saw what we're doing is making their jobs harder. Because, of course they have metrics and goals and things like that, where we see it as, well, geez, if they can go do $600,000 and we can do $300,000 or $400,000, I mean, that's $1 million. I'd rather have $1 million going to keep my kid alive than $600,000.
Yeah, you're adding to the pot is what you're doing.
We're mission driven. So as people always ask me, I'm like, man, I hope another charity starts up tomorrow that raises twice as much money as us. Like, do it better.
Yeah.
Do it bigger.
Yeah.
Because the goal isn't for Cure CF to be a household name or to do anything overly well. The goal is to cure this disease.
Yeah.
And we are singularly focused on that.
That's amazing. Yeah, I agree with you. It's not a competition.
Yeah.
The more money we can put in the pot to help with whatever mission that we have is more towards the right cause.
I don't know if you've seen this, but this has been pretty incredible for me. I remember, when Samuel was born and we really got into this, I said, man, I'm never giving anybody else $1. It's all going to CF. It's all going to cystic fibrosis. Like any of the other charities, they're out. But once you're on the inside, once you're behind the curtain and you see the generosity of people and you see people open their hearts and you see people like you sharing their platform.
Yeah.
Man, I support everything. I support everything I can. And it's amazing what happens. And just once you see it and once you feel it and once you get all those yeses, you want to say yes and you want to figure it out. So it's not even a competition versus other cystic fibrosis organizations, but this isn't CF competing with cancer. Sure, people have a set amount of money they can donate to charity and things like that. But I tell people all the time, look, however you're getting involved and with whatever you're getting involved with, like, do it with all your heart. Be excited about it because you're making an impact.
Yeah.
I celebrate those donations.
No, I agree. It's funny you say that. We were at the fair one year and we were fairly new in Shirley's Way, and a major organization, they had their shirts on, walked by and said something really snotty to us about who they were with. And I just looked at them and I thought, this is not a competition. I don't care if you work for the multi-million-dollar major corporation or somebody small like us, but that wasn't very, I don't know how to get across, like we were just talking about, that other organizations can do very good work.
That's right.
And bring value.
That's right.
To the table and still bring in some money. But it's crazy how some of them think that, you know, they're better than you or whatever. But I was just really taken aback by how but I've marked them off my Christmas list, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's I just simply say it like this, like you're either mission driven or you're not.
Yeah.
You know, and from what I've seen both in my career and on the charity side, if you're mission driven, it's going to go further. You're going to impact more people. You're going to, like 1 + 1 doesn't always have to equal 2. And my 1 doesn't have to beat your 1 in order for me to get to 2.
No.
Like we can all figure this thing out together.
No, I'm all about funny math. Well, great to meet you. Thanks for coming in. And Cure CF Inc., is that right?
Yeah, curecfinc.com.
Yeah, we'll be out there looking. If you want to make a donation, curecfinc.com, or watch for the events. Hopefully we'll be able to do some events this year. And you know, I mean, you never know. Maybe we'll partner up with you all on something. That'd be a lot of fun too. So
you don't think you're getting out of here without me asking about what we can do together, right?
No, I'm all for it. Yeah, so we're partnering with Terry and Leslie.
I'm like, hey, if they can do it. Yeah. So like I said, we are not shy to ask. So yes, look for opportunities that get involved with joint events between Shirley's Way and Cure CF.
I'm liking that a lot.
Speak it into existence.
Sounds good. Thank you, sir.
All right.
We'll talk to you.
Thanks for having me.